The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Hello and welcome to another Soccer to the Max as the MLS Playoffs, the conference semifinals round one are now all officially in the books, and they will be quickly starting up again on Thursday, and then you have 3 games on Sunday. But the Columbus Crew have defeated the NYCFC by a score of 4-1, thanks to in large part to a 52nd minute red card given to an NYCFC player. And that what was weird is I felt like NYCFC actually started to play better once they went down a man instead of the other way around. And Columbus obviously got to take advantage of having the main advantage. But there was so many times where it looked like NYCFC could get a second or third goal before Columbus was going to get more. But it was 1-0 at the half. Then all the goals came in the second half. What did you think here? Columbus Crew? It looked like it was well attended. The crowd was boisterous. We were going. Saved the Crew everywhere.
Well, not just in English, but I'm pretty sure at the end of the match I saw a sign in Portuguese as well. And I'll say, Columbus, yeah, if you're going to make a run to MLS Cup, you're going to want me to eat more Chipotle, because I had to make a couple of pit stops, and while I was making said pit stops, you scored both times. So I'm just throwing that out there. And they're lucky that the game happened the way it did, because Don and Josh, I'm mad at the both of you right now.
Well, there's certainly reasons to be angry at them, especially Don with all the stuff that's been going on with Save the Crew lately. And we have more on that, actually, that we'll talk about after this game here, just to get the latest in here about that. But the Crew really, it was pretty much what you've seen from these two teams. It was very attacking. Both teams were going at it. Ola Kamara got a 6-minute goal thanks to a Higuain shot that rebounded off Sean Johnson. That would not be the first shot that rebounds off him. And Kamara hits it in. Then NYCFC just had several shots, especially the one by Villa that hit the post. I feel like Zach Steffen must have hit some pixie dust on those posts. They keep saving him constantly. Kamara missed one. Rodney Wallace missed one. Merrim had one where he was right there in front and missed one. Honestly, NYCFC should have put it in before that half ended.
NYCFC should have put it in, and if you look at the overall phase of the game, it wouldn't surprise me if it ended up 7-5. And even before that 52nd minute red card issued by the fourth official, who mysteriously had to become the referee at halftime.
Yeah, the referee was sick.
Oh, yeah, they kind of didn't fully explain that part.
They didn't explain why. They just I happened to randomly catch it that he goes, well, they changed officials at halftime.
Yeah, that's what I caught too. When they're like, oh, the official will take no further part. And I'm like, why? Never heard anything about it. But then the fourth official becomes the referee, so he's got to sprint back and forth the width of the pitch to look at VAR and finally issue the red. And I was like, well, this is going to be an extra interesting wrinkle. But even before that, before halftime, Columbus could have easily made it 2-3-0, maybe 3-1. This was nuts.
Yeah, this could easily become the same deal like with Toronto last year if they're not careful. The Artur goal that goes in the 58th minute was that was just a nice piece of business there, and then Merrim as well gets one, just deserved after everything he'd been doing. Villa gets one off a Jonathan Mensah mistake, and he gets it right in front of him and he puts it in. And then I have no idea. I mean, look, a lot of credit to Awful on, yes, that's his last name.
Yeah,
Uh, on actually staying upright and moving around. But why are you just giving yourself up so quickly in the box, Alexander Ring, and the rest of you that are just sliding all over the place? And Awful's just standing there, okay, let me move to the right, let me move to the left. All right, I'm just going to hit it in. If there was anything, you needed to make sure that that fourth goal did not go in. And, because they had the away goal, they would have only had to score 2 goals to win the game, which is, not too tough of a scoreline at all, especially going back to Yankee Stadium. But now you're having to score 3, and that's with you hoping that Columbus doesn't score again. I mean, oof, that's difficult.
and imagine not even looking at this 3-0. You've got to easily, with Columbus's attacking style, knowing that they're in your head, you've got to win 4-1 to force extra time. And yet people wonder why Patrick Vieira kicked that water bottle. I mean, half of NYCFC just stood there.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing that and if Columbus scores 1 at all, it takes away the away goal, and then you have to score possibly even 4 to get up to extra time. It's ridiculous. In fact, this lead right here.
4-1 to force extra time.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You'd have to win 4-1 exactly, but this actually would be, it's the largest deficit overcome in a playoff series between leg 1 and leg 2 if they're able to do it. Now look, it's possible. You just take the game in sections, right? Like try to have a goal for yourself as to when you want to score the first goal. Try to see if you hit that, then, let's say we want to score the second goal by the end of the half. All right, and then it's up to you to get that last goal and make sure Columbus doesn't get one in. Now, Columbus gets one in, it's a bigger and bigger hole every time. I got to give credit to David Villa, though, for trying and constantly just continuing. He didn't give up. The team didn't. They missed chances again in the second half as well that could have made it 3-2 even. So I think if you're NYC and you're Vieira, I know you're disappointed with the red card and everything else, but you have to look at yourself and say, man, just so many missed opportunities on this evening.
Absolutely, too many missed. And to think, this was NYCFC's first postseason goal ever. And that moment gets taken away because you could have had as many as 4. So, really, what does that say about the makeup and chemistry of your team? What does it say about your team's mentality that you finally break through, but everything's just ruined, in a sense?
I felt like the team wasn't really desperate enough until they got down that 3-1. That's when they started finally doing stuff.
No, they weren't desperate. They weren't urgent. The only player that I saw play with that urgency was Villa, and even then, you had Morales to make a couple of decent runs, especially wide open through a nice gap right in front of the box. But even then, couldn't capitalize on that when that could have easily been a certain goal.
Yeah, certainly. And now I guess you go back to Yankee Stadium and you have quite the hill to climb. I think certainly you got to give credit again to Columbus. Anthony Precourt was supposedly there, and they made their voices known. They had a few obscenities to yell at Precourt as well. They weren't. So you have to say kind of deserved on his part there, but yeah, they came out and supported. That's good.
Yeah, we talked about this, and I said if you're Columbus, if you really want a chance to save this team, big news for Ohio State after a big win on Saturday, what they're doing, and now you have a chance to root on a team that's called that area home for 20 years. See them make a surprise run as darlings, and you showed up for the first big hurdle. So kudos to that fan base.
Certainly. Got to give them a lot of credit for that. And let's see if they travel at all to Yankee Stadium and have the Save the Crew signs and everything else. And, yeah, I totally agree with you on there, too. Seeing those Save the Crew signs during college game day the entire time, that was pretty amazing to witness that. You're going to an American football stadium, and the people in the college town decide we're gonna do this. You gave it a great spotlight, and it continues. And yeah, but before we get on to the next game, I think it's important to mention the stuff that's been going on this week with the Save the Crew movements and everything else. The thing heading into, but before this game, was that Don Garber and MLS have now gotten themselves into some potential legal trouble with the San Antonio judge of Bexar County, even though it's spelled with an X in the middle. It's pronounced Bear. I
always thought it was pronounced Bexar.
I did as well, but it apparently is Bexar County. So the judge has he sent Don Garber a letter saying that he felt that he was misled by Garber and the whole committee involved with expansion, that they pushed him to buy Toyota Stadium and submit a bid, and that now they are trying to launch, or they have launched a probe and then launched an investigation by the district attorney there of Bexar County to see if they can prove that MLS knew. And I don't know how you can, if you're MLS, how do you not read these contracts that these teams sign, right? If you're a closed league, you're a single entity. Not only did MLS know, some of these other owners have to have read this, right? So I'd imagine it's not just between the Hunts and Precourt. Other people had to have known about this this deal here with Precourt having that Austin thing in the contract. I think it's interesting. How far will they take it? MLS has already refuted the claim, saying that they don't feel like they misled them at all. I mean, what else do you expect them to say? But what do you think is going to happen here? Do you think this becomes a problem for MLS, where this becomes a legal issue? Does this go to court, or do you think that it becomes an investigation, but they can't really prove anything?
I think really, especially given the current situation with the NASL and this San Antonio club situation has ties into that too. I don't know how much you can actually prove. Now, if I'm the NASL, I go ahead and see if I can try to bring them into the fold on my case, because now you could potentially have a strong, legit argument instead of...
I don't think that this helps the NASL at all Number one, because you have to look at it from the pretext of the judge is also seeking some kind of, hey, you got to guarantee me in a way that we're going to get one of the spots, right? And that's not something that MLS ever does. You do your part, right? You spend all the money you want to spend, and then MLS decides, okay, hey, you did enough, you get the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the judge thinks that MLS, deserves to give him a spot because he did this, and that's kind of not the way it goes either.
No, it's not the way it goes, but the reason why I say that there's ties is because San Antonio is actually one of the more stable teams, although newer, in the NASL. They jumped ship, and the city goes ahead, buys Toyota Park, etc., to try to move their way into MLS, and now this gets shut down. Whereas, at least in my opinion, if hey, all of this is coming about, and this whole thing's going with Austin, well, we're going to park ourselves right here in the NASL, or maybe just head over to the USL down the road, and then just leave it at that. We're okay. Not, we have to make these moves to get the bump up.
Yeah, exactly. And this also leads into an email that was kind of pushed out today in soccer Twitter and everything else. The report is from Massive Report over at SB Nation, and it's a Precourt Sports Venture. I think it's the president talking to a hoaxer that was able to mask himself as Mark Abbott, one of the very important MLS officials. And so he's basically having this email conversation with Dave Greeley, where he is asked about, is PSV planning on sending someone to the playoff game on Tuesday? We are concerned about kicking a hornet's nest. And he first says that Precourt nor he will be there. He says that while Precourt may never go back to Columbus, he didn't say that, but I kind of know it. I will be back in Austin. I think now Precourt was there at that game, so
Yes,
that removes that whole thing about he wouldn't go back. I think he also made sure he was there after this email came out. But he just has this conversation about, basically Greeley says it's a vocal minority making a large share of noise. The irony is that this group is inch wide and a mile deep, is the one being let down by the broader community and corporations. PSV is the easy target. Kind of think we have not done well with getting facts and findings out there.
I just, wow. This,
Apparently, also Grant Wahl broke embargo from the Columbus Dispatch by pushing that news out a day before they announced it. And then when he's asked about San Antonio not being happy about them moving to Austin, this is when Greeley doesn't respond anymore. But yeah, I mean, he does mention that it seems like it wasn't like there was always this plan to move to Austin, and he does say something about maybe the fans can save the team because of all the local support and everything else, but I don't think he gives away too many things here. I don't know. What did you think?
No, he really doesn't, but this is kind of an even weirder spot because now you're going from gung-ho this team's out of here to, hey, wait a minute, these people really do care after all, and all these things are going on behind the scenes. Now I'm going to have to start rethinking some things that I really didn't want to think about and didn't have to think about before. So this is going to be a tremendous change in mindset, if you will.
Yeah, I just don't know. It depends on Precourt, right? If he really feel now, let's say that Columbus does, end up hosting MLS Cup, which, that's a large stress because you have to make sure finish off NYCFC, and then you also have to go through the best team in the league, which is Toronto, to get there. This isn't the West. You're having to go through the best team in the league to get there. That's not easy at all. Okay? And we'll talk about their game against the Red Bull. I don't know that they showed off that they were the best team in the league in that game, but they showed flashes of why.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just really interesting to me that if they get to the conference finals and they somehow are able to beat Toronto, they will host the MLS Cup final. I mean, what do you do if you're the champions coming into 2018 and, we're moving next year? I mean, that's got to make Precourt think something else, right? If the team wins or even gets to the final. I mean, I know they were just recently in the final not too long ago, but
yeah,
that's got to mean something.
If they beat Toronto, if they get advanced, they would automatically host it no matter who wins the West?
Yeah, it's based by record.
Yeah, wow. Oh, God.
Remember, they used to do neutral field, and they stopped doing it.
I know they used to do neutral, and I know it's based on points, but I didn't know that even at fourth, they were that much better than anybody else in the West, points-wise. Yep. That's why I
remember Vancouver finished on, or I think Portland finished on like 52.
53, I think?
Yeah, Columbus has like 55 or something.
Oh, wow. Well, that would certainly shake up a few things.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly would. I just think you have to see how this goes, but if you're Precourt, I think it's very difficult. The further this goes, the more fans are going to want to be there because they're going further in these playoffs, and the more this is going to get attention as far as the Save the Crew movement and everything else. So you're going to have, a lot of time to sit there and go, is this really the best move? And we've talked about before on the show, if you haven't listened, you might want to go back to the previous podcast where we talked about why Austin is not that great a city for this and everything else. But, yeah, I just think for Columbus, they did the best thing they could do for themselves. You just got to go take care of business at Yankee Stadium on Sunday.
Definitely take care of business. You have a 3-goal advantage. I mean, even if you lose the game, you counteract NYCFC. Be the first to score. Be the first to potentially score 2 and make it a real living nightmare. But, oh, wow. The farther they go, the more interesting this situation's going to get. Because say they go ahead, they take care of business at Yankee Stadium. Then we're going to be talking about this all over again come the first leg of the conference final.
Yep, exactly. That first leg of the conference final, you're hosting it again, and we start this whole thing over again. And there they know, Columbus, if they can somehow manage this and get through Toronto, they're hosting MLS Cup. So, yeah. But let's move on to the other games here. I think the only one that we really have a lot to talk about is Toronto and Red Bull. Toronto gets the goal pretty early from Sanchez, and then Red Bull are able to get the penalty right at the end of the half.
Ticky-tack.
Yeah, BWP was... It's a foul, right? It's a foul, but, I mean, that was right there. Like, barely clipped his heel, but I guess you got to call it fair, right? A foul's a foul. But, man, that's... I don't know. I think certainly it could have not been a penalty either. It's MLS refereeing. What are you going to do? I think for the most part, though, in that second half, the Red Bulls were much better. They had chances. Verone came on and added a spice to that team. And then they were unfortunate to allow Sebastian Giovinco to get a free kick. And we know what happens when Sebastian Giovinco gets a free kick.
Everybody's screaming, and the next thing you know, you're getting replays and this and that, and yeah, that.
I mean, I don't understand that how to cover that free kick. You know that Giovinco is going to go over the wall. It's what he does. Why are you having a defender have to figure out if he's going to go backwards and then try to hit it? That seems like very difficult. Yeah, very counterintuitive. Why not just have him stand there?
Huh?
Why not have him stand in front of the goal then? If that's what you're trying to do anyway.
Because you know that's a good question. I was about to say, well, then maybe that makes the defensive strategy too obvious, but obvious doesn't hurt you in that case.
Because I understood what Robles was trying to do. He's covering the far post.
Mm-hmm.
And saying, okay, we're going to give you the near post, but the defender's going to come back and try to head it out off the line. And that just seems like so much harder to do than having him stand there. I understand the whole having the guy on the line doesn't always work. And I think there's a statistic that proves that it works less than it triumphs. But still, if you're going to do that strategy, that just seemed kind of dumb. But either way, I mean, Red Bull still had chances. Toronto were able to, just push it out and able to stop the Red Bull from getting anything. And Jesse Marsch didn't sound like a coach that's ready to, let's push on and go to Toronto. He kind of sounded like, I don't know, and kind of like he'd already lost. And this is essentially halftime, really.
Yeah, it's halftime. Yeah, you're at a disadvantage because Toronto did score twice away, but
right.
Crazier things have happened. Things have happened. You put together, and maybe by some miracle, maybe a bit of dumb luck, maybe what have you, you go to Toronto and score 3, you still have a fighting chance. I mean, even before the Columbus NYCFC game, they talked about Patrick Vieira saying the same thing and having that same attitude going into the last 9 matches of the regular season. And what did NYCFC do? They crapped the bed. Right where they were on fire and poised to, at the very least, make Toronto earn that number 1 spot in the Supporter Shield.
Certainly. Anything can happen in these playoffs, and it's not like that big of a margin. Red Bull have to obviously score 2.
Mm-hmm.
But, hey, if you can't score 2 goals when you're the Red Bull, the thing is that they play more open, so this allows Toronto to kind of get at them, and that creates problems. But so far, I mean, Toronto proving they want to get to that MLS Cup. What do you make of the Josie and Bradley getting booed?
I honestly understand entirely. It was Josie Altidore, Michael Bradley, even Graham Zusi going all the way back to Sporting Kansas City. they see, hey, you're a U.S. national team player. Hey, you didn't do your job. I'm not happy about that. So it's a fan's natural reaction to boo.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. Josie said it didn't bother him about the national team portion of it, but he felt it was classless because they were getting FU chants as well, which I think is sort of, you're getting a little overboard there.
No, no,
But
no, 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 no. Dude, you are in New Jersey. You're lucky
oh,
that's
hold on, but
all.
remember Josie played for the Red Bulls when he first came into the league. I mean, I think you kind of should give him a little credit for that.
No, it's still New Jersey. It's still New Jersey.
Well, that was the part that he thought was classless, and he says there's no loyalty anymore. I guess all bets are off. But that's the problem, though. National team is always going to trump MLS in this country. It's just the way it is. The national team is the number one deal. And it doesn't matter if you play for the Red Bulls when you were 17. They care about the fact that the U.S. didn't qualify for the World Cup.
And
And
especially the fact that it's New Jersey. I'm sorry, but that is a big factor.
Bradley also played for, this team as well, but didn't have any kind of a career, any kind of career milestone like Josie did. I think we also got to remember that a lot of people gave a Red Bull Arena crap for the Costa Rica game. So that's another reason to be upset with them for that too. Is people blame the arena as if that's their fault for the U.S. not getting the job done, and that was not the case in that game either. I don't know. Like I said, if it wasn't because it's national team, and that always seems to trump anything club-wise here, I'd kind of agree with Josie on the whole, hey, he used to play for your team, cut him a little slack, but that's where the cookie crumbles.
This isn't Canada to where you have success for one team, they'll give you a video montage when you're going out and before you play against them. No, you started your career with Red Bulls, great. You had limited success, great. But I'm sorry, did the Red Bulls win a major trophy with you? No, they didn't. So on top of all of that, you expect them to cheer for you the fact that you didn't accomplish anything major title-wise and you didn't qualify for the World Cup? No, you're in New Jersey. That runs deep.
Yeah, certainly. And hey, you're the number one team in the league coming in with two national team guys that didn't help make anything happen. You're going to get booed. It is what it is.
You're honestly lucky you were in a place like Philadelphia where they would have thrown batteries at you.
Let's not do that. That's stupid. But either way.
Again, this is Philly we're talking about.
Okay, but it doesn't make it okay. It doesn't matter where you're at. That's not okay to throw batteries.
No, and I completely understand that. I'm just saying, you better be prepared. Philadelphia, Cleveland, New Jersey. Some of these fans with these attitudes in these places, it can get vitriolic.
I know, but I don't think it would have been that bad if you didn't have the U.S. connection there, though. But I'm fine with it. Like, boo the national team guys. They didn't do their job. Go ahead. It is what it is. I do think that spurred Josie on, though. He looked like he had a little bit of a, pep in his step for wanting to prove these people wrong. So
you use that and then light your fire and give yourself some motivation. Don't let that burn down your building. Their chin F you. You really want to make them earn it? Go out and score a hat trick. Then take off your shirt and wave it around in the crowd. Maybe I am projecting at this point. I'm going to stop now.
Maybe in Canada they'll just chant F the U.S. or something.
No, they're like, hey, sorry, big deal. We get it. Maybe next time,
God, it's awful. Anyway.
Hey, Fans are friendly like that, though. Come on now.
I agree with you. Anyway, so let's move on to Houston and Portland. 4 shots on target the entire game. This pitch was bad again. It is the second game in like 4 days for the Dynamo. You also have the Texas Southern University college football team that plays on it, which I don't know why the hell you would sign up for a stadium where you have to. That's so dumb.
Texas Southern?
Yes, Texas Southern University.
Okay, what are they? FCS? Division 2?
Yeah, FCS, I would imagine.
Then I rest my case.
No, it's Division 2. They're Division 2.
I really rest my case then. That's like paradise for a Division 2 team. Come on now.
I think it's also the grass. Like, the grass is not the greatest either. That Bermuda grass that they use, apparently that might be a problem. But
why do you use
Hurricane Harvey didn't help things either. So
why do you use Bermuda grass in Texas?
It's beyond me. I'm not a grass expert. But either way, both teams, 2 shots on target, each one. Portland comes into the game with no Sebastian Blanco or David Guzman. One of them was injured because they burned themselves with boiling water before the game. Do you not know how to boil a pot of water without dropping it on yourself? I don't. That's got to be, in sports lore, one of the dumbest ways to get injured.
Oh, no, it isn't. No, it isn't.
I mean, it's not the dumbest, but it's one of the dumb. Like, come on, you boil water every day to cook simple things. I mean, I get it that I don't know if he has kids or somebody was running across and he hits the pot by accident.
Now look, if he had broken his neck or broken his collarbone in an accident carrying groceries, yeah, then I would say that's one of the dumbest, because that's happened before. When you're talking on the list of dumb sports injuries, boiling water, that's like rookie league. So, no.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, that shouldn't be happening. He apparently had degree of burns that were so severe that it was too difficult for him to move around. So
Now, then you're probably talking 2nd degree, maybe 3rd.
Yeah. I think it was 2nd degree burns, and that's... And it's Sebastian Blanco, by the way, that was the one that had the boiling incident. You had Diego Chara break a metatarsal in his foot. He's out, and he is not coming back at all for the playoffs. Darlington Nagbe had a tightness in his hamstring. He had to come out in the 60th minute. Mabiala also got hurt. So they were the walking wounded by the time we got to the end of that game, Portland. And you could understand why they weren't going for it. Houston was going for it, but they just couldn't get stuff on target at all because Alvis Powell was a beast. And so was various other parts of that Portland defense. Ridgewell had a couple of gaffes that I think he wants back. But overall, another kind of just drab game in Houston.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth, drab. Because Houston all throughout this season saying, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to be a counterattacking team. So with a team like with Portland, even though they have their own kind of scoring quartet, they're like, no, you're not going to be on the counterattack with us. We're going to park it just enough to where you can't generate anything. We'll leave it up to go to Portland if we have to. And that's exactly what they did.
Certainly, and Houston has proven they can score in Portland. They had a 2-2 that they mentioned in the game, and then Portland took it to them in the second half. Now, all Houston has to do is score 1 goal, and if Portland makes it a draw, Houston would go through on the away goal rule. So, you know, you just Houston is basically has to keep scoring to whatever Portland does. You just can't let Portland get out to a big lead. You just have to wonder how many of these guys are going to be playing in the next game on Sunday. So that's going to be the key here, is how many of these guys can get better before you get to that game. I think you can be okay with this for Houston. What did you think about I think definitely they got it wrong on the Derek foul to Chara, I think it was. That was a foul. That was a penalty to me.
It was, and I was sitting there and I was like, why did they call play? I just didn't get it. To me, that was pretty blatant.
The Elise one was called a penalty, but then VAR took it back because he apparently got the ball first. That one was also kind of questionable too. A lot of times it doesn't really seems to matter whether they got the ball first. If they came from behind, they just called a foul. So it seems very just weird that we're deciding to do this all of a sudden in a game.
I mean, if the first call, with the fact that it was with VAR and overturned, I guess maybe that's why the referee didn't want to make that second call, because all of a sudden now you're dealing with a delay, and then with VAR, and then that would have to go again. But still, it was very, very nonsensical in terms of decision making.
Yeah, Maviala's that second leg doesn't hit him though, so I think that's might have been also what the referee was looking at, that there wasn't an intent to really hit him. It was more like he went down and that happened. But either way, you get a 0-0, and it's all to play for there in Portland on Sunday. Then you have the game that will take place on Thursday, and no Clint Dempsey. And there was more guys missing for Seattle, and Vancouver plays like they just don't care.
They didn't.
Like nobody wanted to score in that game. One shot on goal, Eric. That is the worst performance in a match in MLS this entire year.
I honestly was almost put to sleep by that one. It was that terrible. And I'm thinking it was the same night as the Toronto and Red Bulls, and I missed that one because of work and other commitments, but I figure, okay, Cascadia, I'm going to do something. I'm going to be able to see something. Seattle trying to get back and defend their title. Vancouver getting through things to the knockout round, trying to say, hey, we're still a legit team in the West, being up near the top, and then they go out and play 90 minutes of garbage. I was so infuriated.
Yeah, it's just, I get it that you didn't have Jordy Reyna or Teixeira. They did play in the second half, but it's just like,
you still
for
put together more than one shot. One.
A .88 expected goals. Ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's not like you had some chances. I mean, yes, it was early on. It was a little bit of a fluky play in the box, but then that was it. I expected a lot better. A lot better.
Yeah, Chad Marshall also picked up a knock. He's apparently going to start on Thursday, but he's not going to be 100%. Certainly, we'll have Clint Dempsey back. We'll see if this makes a difference going up to Seattle. But, if Vancouver scores at all, Seattle's in trouble because Vancouver has the away goal. So,
yep.
Got to watch out for that one. But should be interesting on Thursday to see if you get the Seattle-Portland matchup, which that's not guaranteed either. Houston could wind up getting to that conference final. Or, you get the Vancouver-Portland or Vancouver-Houston. We'll see what's going on with that. But doesn't it seem weird to you, this playoff schedule? I mean, why wouldn't you have it where you have one game every night instead of one game? I get why you have to have the game on Thursday because of the
Yeah.
Seahawks conflict or whatever. But why not have a game Friday, Saturday, Sunday instead of 3 games on Sunday, nothing Friday and Saturday? That's seems
Especially
like
when you don't have any major conflicts Friday and Saturday. You have more conflicts Sunday than you do any other day of the week.
exactly. Those games will be going against the NFL all day because it's 3, 5, and 7:30.
Exactly. Now, with Toronto, I can somewhat understand because they have the Argonauts, who also share BMO Field, they have their last game of the regular season, and that has very major playoff implications, but that's it. So you could have easily scheduled around that better as well. Have them, I think that game is on a Saturday. You could have had TFC play Friday.
Yeah.
So that it makes no sense. No sense whatsoever.
It certainly doesn't. I don't understand how any of this is really supposed to work. They make their decisions, right? But it's just, you know. Hey, at least you got a triple header on Sunday to look forward to, along with all the other stuff going to be going on. They're officially, you're going to have a game 7 for baseball, but then that's over after that. So you won't even
Yeah,
have.
and that's tomorrow, so that's not going to have any impact on the soccer schedule, which is a bit of a blessing. And be prepared for one more game of November baseball.
Yep. Uh, right there at the edge of November baseball there. But yeah, so that's your 4 conference semifinals first round matchups. Vancouver, Seattle, Portland, Houston, 0-0s, all to play for going into the next round. The Red Bulls certainly have the chances to score 2, but that's going to be difficult to do in Toronto BMO Field against the best team in the league. And then NYCFC have a huge hill to climb going home down 4-1 right now. So it's interesting how this is all going to play out once we get to these games. But hey, I wanted to bring this to your attention because I've seen this several times now. Grant Wahl decided to go ahead and print this out on SI.com. It's actually a Brian Strauss idea that he actually moseyed around a couple of years back, but thought we should just go ahead and talk about it here. So his idea to change the playoffs. Now, of course, we've heard MLS is potentially talking about going to an all knockout format, basically like you just have a knockout round of a tournament happening in the MLS Cup playoffs instead of having these two-legged things, which a lot of people have been saying just brings up a lot of randomness. It's like the NFL. Basically, they're all just a bunch of one games, and
Mm-hmm.
so many things could happen that, other than getting the home game, do you really have an advantage when it comes to actually hitting into those playoffs and everything? So his idea here, which I don't know why that disappeared. Okay, yeah, here it is. So his idea is to do a group stage for the playoffs, where basically it would incentivize every team to win every game. There's reasons for other teams' fans to watch every game. A margin for error if you lose one of the group games, and increased excitement on the last group match day when games will have simultaneous kickoffs. Uh, he also he hates the away goals rule. He thinks that it makes goals uh, harder to score, which is weird because you have this in most knockout competitions. He feels that if
Absolutely.
it's so, what do you like? I mean, they use the away goal in the Champions League and everything else. I mean,
Yes.
so
Champions League, and not just in Europe, but in Asia, all over. I actually like the away goals rule because you're trying to eliminate situations to where you could create extra time in that second leg. I think this is the most effective in doing that. So I have no issue with the away goals rule. Now, my question is, how
okay,
would,
so here's how this is going to go, just so that
okay,
we have this out here. Okay, so all the playoffs would take place after that November uh, international break, number one. So you wouldn't have playoffs before then. You just have a big layoff, and then everybody comes in ready to go after the international break, starting November 18th or whatever. So his idea is the top seed in a 4-team group gets to host all 3 of its group games. The number 2 seed hosts 2 of its 3 group games. Number 3 seed hosts 1, and then number 4 seed goes on the road for all 3 group games. If the number 4 seed can find a way to get the necessary results, more power to it, but it will be a heck of a lot harder to do so in this current scenario. So he is mixing up the conferences also in this, is what it looks like. You'd put 2 West teams and 2 East teams, and then 2 West teams and 2 East teams. It wouldn't be all from one, all from the West and all from the East. But either way you want to do this, right? You can do it that way. But let's
uh-huh,
say you did all West and all East, and then you get, the top two thing, I guess. And then you have your semifinals, and then you'd play it out like a knockout. I guess at that point after that. So what do you?
uh,
Yeah.
well, the reason why I've seen this in a couple of South American leagues before, to where regular season, and they do a full group stage, home and away. But from there, they just have the group winners advance to the final.
Right.
If you're going to have this sort of a group stage, which I like, especially with the fact that the top seeds would host all of their home games, because that's essentially like how you would do in a World Cup, where you have the seeded team doesn't travel, they have all their games in their designated city, and then the other teams travel accordingly. So this is
Right.
applying that methodology to MLS, which I approve of. But if you're going to do this, have it to where the group winners only.
No, they don't want to do that because they still want to have your conference finals.
No, but this is what I'm saying. If you have all West and all East, like say you're 8 teams in the East, that's 2 groups of 4, right?
Right.
Your group winners advance to your conference final. That's it. Your Western Conference group winners advance to your West final. That's it. And then your West and East final meet in MLS Cup.
I get that, but they're not going to do. I think what Grant is proposing here is what MLS would want to do, because they would still want a conference final for each between 4 teams to decide a conference champion.
So basically you're saying they would want a conference semifinal, and for that group stage to act as the quarterfinals.
No, what I'm saying is you have 2 winners, right, for the West.
Yes.
So you have one winner for the East and a winner for the West, and then you have a second team. So if those 2 teams can play in a conference final, and
Yeah,
then you have the MLS Cup final between
that's
the two winners of those.
that's
Yeah.
exactly what I said. The winner of each group, because if you would have 8 teams,
Right. If you
You
had
would
16.
Okay, 16. So that's 4 groups of 4.
Or, well,
Two.
never mind. It's 8. I'm sorry. I'm being stupid right now. Yeah, it's 8. So four on each side.
Then there would be, if it's only 4 on each. No, no. Then there would be no point in that case. Because again, if
It
you
would
were
be
to
like when you have the Confed Cup.
no,
Yeah, where
that
you have the group winners and then the runners up, and then the group winner and runner up play each other to see who's the conference finalist, and then you have it on both sides, and then you have a. I think it's just I don't think MLS would want to do away with the conference final so you could have the trophy for the conference finalists and all that
right.
stuff. I
No,
do
and
agree with you that it would be a good incentive to have that group stage be the only thing. That way,
mm-hmm.
there's a bigger reward for winning that group stage instead of, oh, well, now I got it. I'm just doing this to get another game that I have to play. But, the thing with the playoffs is you kind of always want to give them that extra shot, I guess.
Yeah,
So,
and this is what I'm saying. If you were to expand the playoffs to 16 teams, 8 per conference, and have it
well,
two
they
groups.
can't do 16 unless they have 32 teams.
Well, technically, you wouldn't necessarily have to. Other teams have adopted 16-team playoffs with fewer than 32 teams before.
I know,
So,
but with 28, I think you could have 14.
mm, no. What you would honestly do, though, in that case,
Or you could
if
have 12 and just have 6 and 6.
exactly, and that's what I was going to propose next. What you do is you have 4 groups of 3. So you have so you have triangulars. Now in that case, instead of having each just team play each other once, you could do it to where each team plays each other twice. So each
I don't know
team,
if they want to expand the playoffs either, though.
well, you
Like,
would,
make it to where this lasts even longer. I think they still want the season to end at the same time.
it's a good idea in theory, but the way that they're suggesting it would take a lot to make it done right. Because if you just have the 8 teams and 2 groups of 4 all throughout, then what's kind of really the point in that case? Especially if you have just the top 2 from a group of 4 play on one side, the top 2 group of 4 play on the other side, and even then, if you have a tournament like in the Confed Cup, they cross groups. So no, this,
I mean, you could do that. You could have them cross. What he did was he had them cross like you would in normal tournaments. He had one of the West teams play the East team, and the other East team plays the other West team. So, like, East 2 plays West 1, East 1 plays West 2, and then you have the number 1 in the East and number 1 in the West meet each other. But I could
yeah,
see MLS not wanting the conferences to touch, and then you just have
no.
another game between. Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I say the different ways to map it out where the conferences don't touch. That's why it would take a lot to get that idea right. There's a lot that would have to be tweaked for that to work.
I could see it happening, though. I don't know that MLS would want that because I don't like the two-legged thing either. I like this because it removes the two-legged thing. You still have a group games, make it seem like it's, one shot against every team. Yeah, it's accumulation of points. You could still have games where it's, they're not pretty or whatever. But when
Mm,
you have a group stage, you kind of don't tend to look at it that way when you have
right.
3 games that you're playing. When it's 2 legs, you're sitting there going, oh, it's such a drag, and you're having to wait for that other game. But at least it's a fresh opponent every time, so you're not really, you know,
Yeah. And that's why I think with MLS, if they did it with the triangulars, because even if you do it in groups of 4, you would have 3 match days. Each team would play on each of those match days. If you did it in a triangular where everybody plays each
Well, I
other,
mean, if you could also, if you wanted to have more teams, right?
mm-hmm.
And you wanted to keep it to, okay, you don't have the group stage, so you have 8 teams. You could have those knockout round games to decide who your 8 teams are, and then you have the group stage. Because if you have like a 16-team group stage, this is going to take forever. You know?
Not if you schedule multiple matches in a day,
What?
especially since you're using different stadia.
Oh, I know what you're saying. You could do that, right? You could,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Remember, you got to give them enough time between games and all that stuff too, like the World Cup. I don't know. That's a lot.
Yeah, it would be time wise painful.
Especially if you're trying to make it to where all the games happen after that international break, so you don't have the 2 weeks in
Because
between where there's nothing.
because if you're talking about starting these playoffs after the international break, then you're looking at potentially second week right around mid-December MLS Cup final, which that's even worse off
Well,
than
it's December 9th, scheduled for December 9th right now.
yeah, it's the schedule for December 9th. Instead of it being the 9th, it would probably be closer to the 19th.
No, the way he has it, not so. You have 2 games on the 18th, 2 games on the 19th. He has games happening on Thanksgiving. You have 2 games on Thanksgiving, 2 games happening the day after Thanksgiving. Then the next set of games are the 28th and the 29th. Then you have your Western Conference Finals and Eastern Conference Final on December 3rd, December 4th, and then you have Saturday, December 9th is still the MLS Cup.
Right, but then still, that's assuming 2 groups. How he's doing it.
Yeah, well, what he's saying is, okay, if you do the knockout rounds can happen before the international break. You can still have those because you're just deciding who's going to get in that group stage. You're not having the group stage. So
Right, no, and
yeah,
I get that, but again, we already know what he's doing and what MLS would do would be 2 different things. I'm looking at it on
I wouldn't
how,
have a problem if it goes into the week before Christmas if you want to have everything happen after the break.
and that's what I'm saying. How
Yeah.
MLS would approach this idea, that's what you would be looking at. It would be going closer to Christmas, starting everything after the break.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. I don't even know what they would consider this. I think you would probably be closer to the whole every game's a knockout game, and this would be very interesting. It would be fun. I'd love to see it implemented, but I don't know that the owners would go for this. And I mean, it would be a boom for them because almost every team except for one doesn't get a home game, and that
Yep.
solves that problem of, oh well, we're losing home games and all that stuff. Well, you know, this solves a lot of the problems. So I like this idea. I just
I
don't
do.
see it happening.
I don't see it happening now. But I will say this, and Don, I hope you're listening. If you decide not to stop at 28, and if you do wind up going to 32, because let's face it, you're already dealing with a lot of issues here. Going to 32, that might be easier for you in the long term. Then you can cut just a little bit off of the regular season. Instead of 34 matches, go 31 or 32. But have this sort of a playoff, and it could work swimmingly.
Certainly, it'd be nice to see. It really would be nice to see here. So when we get past that, we also have a situation with FIFA deciding that they might change the Club World Cup.
Yes.
And
yes.
They might actually. Now, this idea, the only idea that I've seen played around with, and this is the idea that's on MLSsoccer.com, apparently is they are trying to see if they actually go and remove the Confed Cup if they were to make the Club World Cup a every 4-year event.
No.
And expand it into a 20-team deal over 18 days.
No.
Starting in 2021.
No.
And it would be in the summer of all things.
No.
Why? You might get an MLS team in there now because you're getting multiple spots.
No.
Why? Hold on. You keep saying no and you don't give me a reason.
Okay. First of all, to educate the viewers that don't know, I have been somewhat of an avid follower of the Club World Cup ever before it was officially named the Club World Cup, before it was called the Toyota Club World Championship. Originally, it was the 6 confederations just in a straight knockout, which, given the history of your Intercontinental Championship, your winners of UEFA Champions League and Copa Libertadores were given byes to the semifinals. The other 4 confederations were drawn. Those winners got to the semifinals. That team got to the final. Then, when Australia left Oceania and joined the Asian Confederation, that left Oceania strictly amateur. So the rules changed to where the host nation's league winner played the Oceanic champion, quite often Auckland City from New Zealand, the Mailmen. They played for a play-in match into the quarterfinals where they would join the other 3 confederations, Asia, North America, Africa. And then those 2 winners would go on, face the semifinals and final like normal. And yes, there are 3rd and 5th place matches. Now, the Oceanic Confederation naturally was very, very pissed because your team from Auckland City would have to travel thousands of miles because it's usually staged in either Japan or the past couple of years they've given a couple of tournaments to the United Arab Emirates.
Right.
And they would just play the one game most years, lose, and come back home. The only time that the Auckland City has advanced out of that play-in spot, one year, a few years ago, they actually went all the way and finished 3rd in that particular tournament. Now,
okay.
with Oceania, they actually proposed an idea, expanding the tournament by just 1 team. Instead of 7, make it 8. Have 2 groups, a triangular. The group winners join your UEFA Champions League and Libertadores winners in the semifinals, and then you have a final. That way everybody is guaranteed at least 2 games because you would still have the 3rd place match. The tournament would still be staged in roughly the same amount of time, same time of year, which is around December. I thought that issue would be perfect. How I would organize it, you have your host nation, your league winner in one group, your host nation's cup winner in the other group, along with the other 4 confederation winners. Now, what I constantly did not like about the tournament was that it was strictly that part of the world. I don't know if no other teams desired to bid, no other teams wanted to bid, whatever, but that made it extremely inconvenient because it was always at either Japan or the UAE. If I think they would open up that process a little more, then it would gain more traction. to radically change it to every 4 years in a 24-team tournament like this, and even then, there would still be no guarantee that you would get an MLS team involved. Sorry.
Well, it's
no.
not to guarantee that there would be an MLS team involved. This is not MLS. This is FIFA idea. Okay.
And I think that FIFA is way overreaching on this. Way overreaching on this. This is inherently stupid. Inherently stupid.
Why? You're getting to have more teams from in it, where you could see some big teams play each other.
Then you can expand it to an 8-team tournament, but still keep it annual. You don't have to change it to a massive 24-team tournament and have it every 4 years.
This is their idea to take the Confed Cup away and make it a club thing.
Which is still stupid. I'm sorry. I don't like the way that they're handling this. I don't like this idea.
Fair enough. I just thought I would bring it up. I don't really end up caring. I only really care if a MLS team gets in because they've never been in. The one time that the Galaxy could have gone, they canceled the tournament. I think it's just, I don't care because it's like, who's going to win. It's either one of the Brazilian or Argentinian teams, or it's going to be, one of the UEFA teams. So it doesn't really catch my attention.
Not necessarily. You had Liga de Quito. They made the final in a good run after they won Libertadores and representing Ecuador.
I'm just saying, one of the South American teams or the European teams usually win the thing. So.
Well, and I will say that's true, but in the defense, your other teams, not so much from Africa or even your Mexican teams, but some of those other teams are starting to catch up and really spoil the party, especially Asia. They, over the last few years, have made it a lot more interesting. That's why I think if you could do a small incremental change to the tournament that you have now, that would make it even better.
I agree with you with if they wanted to do 8, that's fine. But that, for one, I like the Confed Cup. I'd hate to see it go away. I like the idea of having that little preview tournament before you get to the tournament. I get that in 2021 you're really thinking about not having it because you don't want to have another tournament in frickin' December or November and then having another one next year, even though I think it's a good idea for the television to already kind of have an idea of how you want this to work if you do have the
and
Confed Cup.
And that's why I say what they were planning to do, from my understanding, having the Confed Cup in another Asian country, another AFC member, which would be good, but since it's already in December and you're already having it in that part of the world anyway, send the big crews to cover the Club World Cup, which they would easily be able to host. And I think if you tweak that tournament, you could have it act like in a Confed Cup type format. You could even do away with the South American European advantage and do that in the Confed Cup style as is.
I don't know. I just think when you're coming in with national teams, I think people care a lot more. When you're coming in with club teams where you only know 2 of the clubs or 3 of the clubs, I think that's much more proposition. And if you were talking about 4 South American clubs and 4 European clubs or whatever, like it was at one point, the Intercontinental, Championship or whatever, then yeah, I think that's okay. But when you're starting to involve clubs from all around the world, which I get what that's supposed to be, replacing that with the Confed Cup is kind of silly for me, I think.
Well, and I get that, but you don't even still... Okay, say you take away even the Confed Cup style, where it's just that strict group stage. You could do it like the way that I proposed, but you could still have that tournament, have a dry run for studios, production, all of that aspect. It would be just fine. And I also get that for club teams it would be harder in terms of scheduling. So you would have your European and South American teams only there for a couple matches, so it's not as much of a disruption from their league schedule. Whereas when the other clubs from other confederations were there in different parts of their season, it would be more conducive for them. So they would in a way get an advantage. You could still have that. But I just say, replacing the Confed Cup with what they're doing, that's overkill, it's stupid, and it's pointless.
I wouldn't say it's pointless, but I do think it's overkill, and I don't know that teams would necessarily really want to do that either.
They would, because you're imagining the scheduling for these things now. It's only a couple.
Yeah, I think people are willing to do it in 2021 for an 8-team thing because that's a little bit more sensical and whatever. It's supposed to be a dry run, not to have a whole different World Cup the year before the actual World Cup. I mean, that's killer. You know, the year before that you had the Euros, you know, or like it's just you already have these continental championships that
and
are.
Again, you would be right in the second edition of the UEFA Nations League.
Yeah, I mean, just it's crazy. I think it's too much of a hassle. It seems like, and just keep stuff the way it is. Just I like them wanting to change things around, but that seems like so much of a money grab that it's not going to work.
Yeah, you're changing it too much when you can change things just a little at a time.
All right, so let's talk some, just to mention this because, you know, this is happening also on Saturday. USL Cup is in the conference finals. You have Louisville City FC, which is the only non-partner or MLS functioning club that is still left in it. They are taking on New York Red Bulls 2. That's on Saturday. And also on Saturday is Swope Park Rangers. That's the Sporting KC affiliate taking on OKC Energy, which is the FC Dallas affiliate. They are an affiliate club. They're not owned by or controlled by FC Dallas. So, yeah. So, possible
Louisville.
that New York Red Bulls 2 could make it to the final against Swope Park Rangers. Would be interesting to see that happen with more MLS clubs winning these things. We've already heard of 4 MLS clubs pulling out for next year. Of course, we also have that NASL ruling. That may not come down until Thursday or Friday. So by the time we come to you on Sunday night for our next show, we will know something. So that's good. But a lot of people were thinking it might have happened today or yesterday. It did not happen. And it looks like it won't come down till Thursday or Friday. But big deal, because if the NASL loses, could be the end of the NASL as we know it. So I don't think the teams will die. I think they wind up going to USO or they go to NISA. But the NASL could really die if they don't get the temporary injunction. So.
Yeah, the NASL as a league would die, and I think teams, they would probably, I wouldn't even say all of them jump ship to USL. I think the majority of them would probably do something with NISA, but that would create a whole other situation.
Well, NISA has a plan to eventually have their own second division anyway. And so they want to have promotion relegation between their third and fourth division, and then also eventually have second division where you have promotion relegation there as well. So he has a big, huge plan. Peter Wilt, the guy that is in charge of NISA, so eventually he said he even wanted to have a Division 1 that would possibly rival MLS if MLS didn't want to get involved in promotion relegation. So
that would be tricky.
That would be interesting if they could do it, but I don't see. Again, this is another thing. If it goes the other way for U.S. soccer could pretty much become impotent where they have no control over anything but the Olympics when it comes to soccer. So obviously it makes that U.S. soccer presidency way less attractive for all these people that are fighting for it right now.
Yeah, I was just about to say that would really affect certain candidacies from those that are trying to maintain the status quo.
I mean, you would still have control over the U.S. women and U.S. men's national team. You just wouldn't be able to control what MLS does or NASL or USL or whatever. So.
Yeah, and again, that would make certain candidacies attractive given their platforms and what they would do even with the national teams. And who's to say, even if they have no control, that you have some of them, if they win the election, want to put their thumb on the scale a little bit, even if it's in the best interest of club soccer in the U.S. as a whole.
Yeah. We'll have to see how that goes down, but very important proceedings happening this week. Let's wrap up with MLS with a few news and notes here. Your Orlando City SC could be closing in on Norwegian international Joe Ing Berget, or Berget. I don't know how you would pronounce that, but
No, it's Berget. The Norwegians, they use the hard letters and syllables.
So he's made 19 appearances with Norway's senior national team. He has 2 goals for them. He's played in the Champions League for Malmo FF of Sweden. He has 3 goals and 4 assists in 17 appearances there, and he's also scored 9 goals and 2 assists in 24 appearances this year for the club. He's 27, so I think it would be a good move for.
If you're good enough to where you can have a Swedish team in Champions League, come on down to Orlando and let's see what you can do.
Yeah, they're close to nailing it down, so we'll see if it actually happens for Orlando or not. Atlanta is close to signing another South American, as Franco Escobar is in advanced talks. In Spanish, they have it. The transfer is pretty much shut by word of mouth, so pretty much like a verbal agreement right now. In the negotiations, it would be a 3-year deal for $1 million. He is 22 years old. Tata Martino tried to get him last year. He's been playing for Newell's Old Boys, which is one of the teams that Tata used to manage. Of course, also a team where one Diego Maradona played for as well.
Back when Newell's was really one of the top teams in Argentina. Now,
exactly.
Not so much.
Yeah, so if you lose Miguel Almiron, you do add a very good center back and left back that helps that hole that's been there because Greg Garza keeps getting injured or other problems keep happening. So that's good for Atlanta, certainly. And then the big news, Javier Mascherano says he wants to move to MLS post-World Cup. Yes.
No.
He says he doesn't want to go to China, Qatar, or other exotic locations during the super wage. His desire is clear. If a franchise in USA meets his demands, Barcelona will let him go.
Masche, you would look excellent in purple. I'm just saying.
I feel like this is a Galaxy
No.
right here.
No. LAFC, on the other hand, I would live with that. But
it would be cool for LAFC if certainly that happened, but I feel like, they're trying to get Zlatan over there. I feel like that would be a move that I could see Galaxy certainly making. And get ready. Your big chant here, or your favorite saying here, Eric, because the Colorado Rapids are very close to hiring New Zealand national team manager Anthony Hudson.
The mailmen are invading! I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah, Marinovic has earned himself the starting goalkeeper spot for Vancouver. and he's in the playoffs. You have Boxall over there for the Minnesota United, and now you have Anthony Hudson. Of course, he was born in the United States. He was raised in England. So, of course, he's the son of Alan Hudson. Whenever we did this for for the Confed Cup, I remember editing all this here. But he
Yes,
has history.
I think that was the group I covered.
Yes, you did cover New Zealand. So it's interesting. I thought they played decently in that Confed Cup. I mean,
they played fantastically for mailmen. Now, when it comes to actual footballers, they were okay.
right, but I mean, he's dealing with more professional footballers here than he would in New Zealand. So,
but you're still a mailman at heart. Have fun, Colorado. That's all I'm going to tell you.
I think this would be a decent move. I think this would be a really good move for Colorado. So.
Yeah, be prepared to hear that chant a lot more next season.
Especially if Colorado, does positive things. So.
Sure, we'll go with that.
You're like, I don't know if that's going to happen or not.
No, that's exactly why I'm going to be chanting more often. If they do positive things, then what's the point?
So you want them to do negative things? Are you saying you want Colorado to fail?
Hey, I am not saying you actively go out and do these things. However, if it so happens organically, it would be to my benefit for the purposes of this podcast.
And we end on this note here as, I think it's, next week, USA women's team ends their 2017 friendlies with a home-and-home against Canada. They play in Vancouver at BC Place on November 9th, and then on November 12th at Avaya Stadium in San Jose. And the U.S. have already named their 23-player roster for these upcoming friendlies. You have two uncapped players. Adriana Frank of the Portland Thorns. She was one of the best goalkeepers. I think she was the goalkeeper of the year, if I'm not mistaken, at NWSL. And, of course, the usual suspects that we've seen a couple of, for many call-ups now, Alyssa Nair and Ashlyn Harris, and, of course, Jane Campbell, who's gotten a couple of caps recently. The defenders are pretty much everybody we've seen except for one, Avi Dahlkamper, Sevilla Huerta, Kelly O'Hara, Becky Sauerbrunn, Casey Short, Taylor Smith, Emily Sonnet, who it's been a while since we've seen her, so it's good that she's coming back, and Chima Ubogagu from the Orlando Pride. She will be making her debut for the U.S. Women's National Team if she gets to get on the pitch. So, hey, another Orlando player. Eric?
See, we're making waves. We're doing very steadily. The Pride had a very good season, kind of ended with a thud, but still a good season.
Yeah, still a positive one. You got Julie Ertz, Lindsay Horan, Carly Lloyd, Allie Long. Good to see her back. Samantha Mewis and Andy Sullivan from Stanford, so she gets another pair of caps possibly added to her resume. Tobin Heath, Alex Morgan, Kristen Press, Megan Rapinoe, and Len Williams. All going to be called here. So, the usual suspects with some nice new debuts. Good to see that Adriana Frank is going to get called up. Whether she gets to play or not is another deal entirely. And remember that Canada takes these things seriously. So we'll see if we have this U.S. roster do the same with these lineups. But I like seeing this from Jill, slowly bringing in new players.
Exactly. Slowly kind of turning things around, doing things right, taking increments to make progress instead of going backwards like someone else that I know.
We have a 60-player player 60-person player pool for the upcoming friendly against Portugal right now.
Okay.
So,
Not bad. Not bad.
well, that's mainly to give the clubs full knowledge that any of these players could get called up. It's not that, their events are going to have to whittle that down, obviously, but
Oh, of course. Wonder how many of the players are from indoor soccer.
well, let's end on that. You said you had something to say about indoor soccer here.
All right.
So.
Now, the Major Arena Soccer League season just kicked off. You had 2 fantastic games. Sean, in an area that's kind of near and dear to your heart, an expansion team, the El Paso Coyotes, they got their first league win.
Cool.
So, everything is well and good. Now, last season, you had a little bit of trouble with some of the teams. One of the more stalwart franchises, the Kansas City Comets, running into a little bit of an issue with ownership, but the league under now second-year Commissioner Joshua Schaub, they're making headway to keep that market in Kansas City, get ownership stabilized, moving to the future. Now, the good news in a way is that the inactive teams, Dallas Sidekicks and the Chicago Mustangs, a couple of others, they're finding ways to come back, either next season or in MASL2, the second division league that's going to be starting up in December, with between 8 and 12 teams. That's going to be a big plus. Even bigger plus, you have 4 even divisions, sorted out nicely geographically, 16 teams. Great. Now, I mentioned on a previous podcast towards the end of last season, as Baltimore was on their championship run, defeating Los Soles de Sonora for a second consecutive year. There were some things that I liked. Talk of expanding the season, which they did. The season is now 22 matches instead of 20, baby steps, and changing up how the playoffs were going to be done. This is what I don't like. Now, historically, through the past couple of iterations, going back to the NISL, the playoffs have always been 2-game series with a mini-game tiebreaker after Game 2 if a team wins each one. This was for division semifinals, division finals, conference finals, the Ron Newman Cup, which is your championship series, which it makes a lot of sense. Now, as Josh put it, dear old Josh, to, as he calls, emphasize regular season records and victories, only the first round, which would be the division finals this year, is this 2-game series. Your conference championship and your Ron Newman Cup are one-off, win-or-go-home situations. Now, Sean, we got into a little bit of debate on this before we went on air. Indoor soccer has tried this before. It didn't work.
I still don't understand why it matters whether you have the 2 games or the 1 game, why it doesn't work.
Because with the 1 game, the season is already short enough as it is. And you're already kind of playing team schedule-wise. Sometimes you have back-to-back, or sometimes you have 5-6 days where you don't play. Sometimes you're playing on a Tuesdays, whatever. But as you're going towards the end of this season, now you're talking March. With a lot of these cities, you have multiple arena dates available. Especially with the Baltimore Blast, they moved to a new arena out of Royal Farms and into SECU Arena on the campus of Towson University. It looks like it's a great facility. You'll get a more intimate crowd. I'm all in favor of that. You're telling me that for these kinds of fan bases, especially if you're getting one of the Mexican teams who would pack a place like the Uso de Multi or Centro de Usos Múltiples, Come on, you're missing out on a lot of key revenue at a time when you're wanting the league to grow. It's not like, oh, you're doing this and cutting down to get a chance on a TV contract. No, you have your games on YouTube, big plus for me. You're developing MASL TV, another big plus. So what are you doing? To me, it feels like you're moving backwards in this decision, not forwards. Sorry, Josh, I think you're getting this one wrong.
I just don't see how the one game is really killing the season. Now, I do think that it should only be a one-off for the cup itself. I think the conference finals should be a series as well, and you have that prestige of it being like the Super Bowl of indoor soccer or whatever for the championship. That seems kind of weird that you're going to do a 2-1-1 instead of even like a 1-2-1 or something like that for like we have in MLS. So I think the order might be weird, but also I don't understand why you need to do 2 games. Why not just make these 3-game series like you would in every other sport? Why have this little mini tiebreaker thing instead of just having an extra game?
And that's what I was suggesting. They made that change in indoor lacrosse to where your first round of the playoffs is a one-off because it's a division semifinal. The division final is this 2-game set with the mini-game tiebreaker. And they made the Commissioner's Cup a full-on best-of-3 series. Why wouldn't you do something like that for these playoffs here? I think that would be much better than the 2-game set and then one. That's just stupid.
I can see your point there, but I don't know. I just feel like it always feels bigger when you have the one game at the end instead of having a series at the end.
For outdoor sports, absolutely, I get it. But for indoor sports, especially when you're talking expansion and you're talking a longer regular season. Now, I'm not saying go back to the late 80s where you had best of 5 and best of 7 series and you played a 40 to 50 game schedule. I'm not saying that at all. But if you are really trying to do this, especially Josh putting it out there, using indoor soccer and using this league as a feeder system to the outdoors and trying to create better talent for the men's national team on a bigger level, you're not doing yourself any favors. Yes, in some cases you're getting the league, I guess, taken more seriously, but in other situations you're costing yourself money. You can sell out 2 games in a final, especially if it's your top 2 franchises like it has been, rather than just a one-off.
Yeah, fine. I don't know. I get it that you want to add extra games and you're giving each team a home game and all that kind of whatever, but I don't think it really hurts it either way. But I'm not also connected to that league, so I can understand your being upset there. But anything else you want to add here before we get out of here? Because we're running kind of long.
Josh, you have ways to redeem yourself. Just like Don, just like Ben. Bruce had his chance, but no more. Come on, guys. I'm willing to help here. Meet me halfway at the very least.
You heard it from Erik here. Meet him halfway on the situation. But all right, we will be back on Sunday after the final MLS game to wrap up the conference semifinals and look ahead to those conference finals. We'll have the USL final already in place as well by then, and of course hopefully they will have made a decision on the NASL temporary injunction if they get that, or if they rule in U.S. Soccer's favor. We'll, I guess, talk about what opportunities are there for NASL after this. I'm sure that they are going to continue to pursue this as much as they can if they fail, because obviously their lives are on the line here. The leagues, everything is on the line if they can't get this. So, but all right, until that Sunday, we appreciate you listening. If you liked what you heard, please give us a subscription. You hit that subscribe to Soccer to the Max. You get every show that we do automatically there in your feed. You don't have to go look around. It's already there. If you hit subscribe on YouTube, the W2 Network YouTube channel, you get that too. And you get all of our other podcasts that you can also just look for W2M Network on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever it is that there are podcasts, we are there. And so, yeah, I think it's a great thing if you go and do that for us. Hit us up with a review. That would be nice too on iTunes or wherever it is you listen. 5 stars if you like us. That would be nice. But either way, we appreciate you giving us your time. And until Sunday, we'll see you later, everybody.
Peace.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.